Welcome back to another episode of Paranormal New Normal. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy, trying to bring a little normalcy to this world. Does it ever happen? No, it never happens. But as always, I bring a guest with me on this path to insanity, it seems like, but to normalcy we try. And my guest tonight is Ray Voice. He's the host of the Startup Specialist podcast, and he, among other things, is a businessman, basically, an author, and more. But we're going to get into all that in a little bit. But you may ask, what the fuck does this have to do with the paranormal? Well, we're going to find that out. And I think we might be a little bit surprised, I have a feeling. So we're going to go with that instinct and just run with it. First things first, though. How you doing tonight, Ray?
I'm doing great, my man.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So, the first question I usually ask everybody on the show is, what made you have an interest in the paranormal? Like, what brought you down that road?
It depends on how you define the interest in paranormal, right? Because I'm a very scientific, skeptic kind of person, but I do find these sort of things interesting. And I do watch a lot of horror movies, mainly because my sister loves them. So we have always been in like sort of a ritual to watch horror movies together. Maybe we get together once a month or something like that. And she's always pointing out stuff like, oh, this I've read is about this similar stuff. Like if we are gonna watch a haunted house movie, she is gonna say, "Oh, there's a real haunted house somewhere. We should go and visit." And I'm like, I'm a skeptic. I do not believe in haunted houses, right? So I said, "Oh, I'm gonna like spend 2 nights in this haunted house and nothing is gonna happen." I'm that kind of a person, right? So it's usually like pretty fun to talk about this stuff and learn about this stuff, and that's why I do it. But generally, I'm a skeptic and I do not believe in this sort of stuff, right? Not to say that I haven't have like experiences that beg explanations, but I hope there are scientific explanations for those experiences, okay? And I'm gonna share some of those experiences right here.
See, that is perfectly okay because that's the way my brain generally works to begin with. I always am looking for a scientific explanation to these type of things because I went to college to be a biologist basically, and from there, like I always need a scientific explanation for everything. I can believe in some stuff I've heard about that is, unexplainable and is undeniable. But for most stranger things in life, I definitely need some kind of science explanation behind it to tell me this is what's going on. Here's the scientific proof behind it. I mean, but we can get into some of that later about certain things. But so, I mean, I agree with you to some degree. I need science behind certain things. Certain things I know to exist, I don't really need to see science behind because it's just too much proof otherwise. But as we all know on this show, the paranormal is just science that hasn't been explained yet. So, at least in my definition. So, I know you told me personally off camera and online that that you had some paranormal experiences. I'm kind of dying to delve into what those are, just so I could get like a baseline of what you've experienced.
Right, so let's not call them ghost experiences and that sort of thing, right? Let's just call them unexplained things that I wish I had an explanation for, right? So
Ooh,
this is the story that I usually talk about with people. What I'm sorry, are you there?
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, trying to get the light back on.
So the first story I want to begin with is this. So what I basically do is I do marketing and consulting, business growth consulting for small to medium sized businesses in the US, North America, basically. And there's this thing where I was working for one of my clients who was a motel chain owner, right? And he was opening up a new motel. We were doing some sort of a brand activation for that motel and that sort of stuff. What happened was the client was an old friend, he was an old client. So I spent the day working through. I mean, we usually like started in the morning, and we were working through the day. We first went to one of his motels, then we drove to another one of his motels. What basically happens is this. it was it got really really late, so the client offered me a room in his motel and said that I can stay in that motel. I can stay in that room. The client was staying in another room, so I said okay. The motel was otherwise it was still opening, right? The motel was otherwise closed, right? And this was a very foresty area. Think about that. So what happened was this. I am not usually used to like sleeping that early. I usually work through the night until I am like tired enough to sleep. So what happened was because it was a strange place, this was a motel room. This was a very closed off stuff where there was not very many people around. There was just one guy on the front desk. There was the client, and there was me. Okay, so there was three people in the entire motel. In the middle of the night, I woke up like I was working on my laptop and then I dozed off, right? In the middle of the night, I woke up because somebody was trying to open my door. At least I was like almost half asleep, so I felt like somebody was opening my door. Now, I usually have a gun with me, but at that time, I didn't have a gun with me. So what I did was this. I like opened the door, checked out, nobody was there. I stood up, I stayed up for about half an hour. Then I told my client, okay, I'm feeling very uneasy here, so I'm gonna drive back to my hotel. Okay. So here's what happened. My car, which was a rental, it got busted halfway. No, I mean, I was like about 10, 15 minutes out the motels and the car got busted, right? I had to start pushing the car, maybe try to find a gas station nearby. And I knew there was a gas station down the line. And then I saw this girl. Now this is weird because the entire road was like there was no one around. I just saw like two guys walking in the distance, and there was me pushing my car, and for somehow somewhere there was an overhead bridge right there. A girl came wearing completely red clothes, right, as if she was like coming from a wedding or something, and she was like pale, like pale as a ghost, you can say, right? She was completely pale. She wasn't saying a single word. She was wearing red, expensive red clothes, like she was just coming from a wedding. And for some reason, she looked really, really familiar, like she was some person I went to high school with, right? She kept looking at me. She kept eyes locked at me, and started feeling very uneasy, right? I started feeling like there was a sense of danger with me, and like I don't know what was going on. I was still about I'm very tired. I think I was very tired. But what happened was first she locked eyes with me. Then when I started pushing my car and went further away, she got up into the bridge. Got up to the bridge, stood up on the bridge, and then she kept her gaze locked at me until I just like pushed my car all the way and like cleared the horizon. She was like literally locked onto me. Like I don't know what she wanted, but when I got to my hotel room, I emailed the client about this sort of thing happened, and the client said that maybe there were some guys there playing a prank or something like that. But at that moment, I felt a very weird sort of danger from that girl, right? Because she was half my size. But I don't know. I guess I was scared because it was that time of the night and nobody was around, and it was a very poorly lit area and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would like to know why the hell was she looking at me? What is the possible explanation for this and that kind of stuff?
Interesting. And just out of curiosity, you don't got to get specific, but was this in the United States or what country was this in?
Let's just keep that stuff general, right? Let's just say that this was not in my hometown, and
Well, that's why I'm asking,
it
like, what
was in a very
country?
remote. It was very. Let's not talk about a country. Let's just say that this was a very remote area, and people usually used to visit this type of area for tourism and that kind of stuff.
Did you say Australia? I kind of didn't catch that.
I don't know. If you want, you can think of it as Australia like that. But you know, think about this. tourist destinations, that kind of stuff is, you can imagine them in any country, right? Wherever you go, they're gonna just be the same thing. So
True,
that's not the kind of
true.
stuff we need to do.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's true. There are stories of roadside ghost spirits in a lot of different countries. I mean, the United States, the United States is full of them. India's full of them. I've heard a lot of stories from India about roadside ghosts and just other places in the world too, of course, Australia, Europe. It seems to be, I mean, because a lot of people die in motor accidents and side of the freeway accidents. Like a lot of people die that way. So it makes sense that these spirits would appear on the side of the road because, they're kind of trapped where they pass because it happens so fast normally that they don't realize they're dead even. They think they're still alive and looking for a way home. I mean, as sad as that sounds, it kind of is the truth of it all. So, all right. I mean, that's creepy, and I've yet to have someone on my show who had one of these. So I am actually very happy you told me about that because that's a unique experience that not many people have. I mean, I can't say I've ever saw someone on the side of the road that I mean, I rarely see humans on the side of the road, let alone like spirits. So it's just it's a unique experience. So I'm happy you told me about it because it's definitely a first for the show, and I love when we break new things in the show. I love popping a new cherry. But any other paranormal experiences that we should know about before we go forward?
Yeah, I have a very similar experience, and this experience, let's just say it was in the same area while I was working for the same client. And just to put your mind at ease, this was not in the United States, okay? And this was not in Australia, okay? But it was in like touristy kind of place. Let's just say, let's just stick with that. So I was like, this was another nighttime story. It was I don't know. It was about after midnight. It was like dark enough that nobody was around except me. And what happened was usually this. This is another instance where my car broke down. This time I didn't start pushing the car because I was going in a different direction with a thinner road and I couldn't push the car through that road. So I just decided that the thing here is this. I could see my hotel from where I was, where my car broke down, right? So I just said that I'm going to take this straight road, walk down it, and then I'm going to walk to my hotel, okay? So what happened was this. I saw this was like a straight road, a very commercial area, small shops, small businesses mostly. Nobody was around. Lights were out. There was just a little bit bunch of. There were just some lights. It was a very poorly lit area. Okay, and this was very close to where the previous incident happened, right? And it was not very close. It was close enough. I'm gonna say it's very close, right? What happened was this. I saw a guy wearing full white clothes, like white from head to toe. You would imagine somebody will, if I don't know, it was a very eerie feeling, right? He was wearing full white clothes and he was like, he had this very uneasy thing about him. He wasn't saying anything. He was at distance enough to me that I couldn't like really see his face, but I knew he was looking at me and he was like a very dark person and I did not know that what happened with that guy. So, I started feeling, and this was a couple of years back than the last previous incident, right? So I was a little bit younger, and this was the first time I was doing field work for clients, right? So I was young, I wasn't really used to being so far away from home. What happened was I got very scared of this person when he was looking at me. I just saw like, for some reason, I just felt like this guy's gonna charge at me. So at first he was there and I was there, and then I was slowly walking him and I was looking at him and he was looking at me, and then I crossed him and then I kept looking behind me to see, and he was just standing there planted in front of a shop. He wasn't moving at all, like he was like a statue or something, right? At one point I genuinely thought he was a statue, but he was not. He was moving his neck. He was looking at me. If sometimes he used to change his hand gestures, but mostly he was like standing very, very still, right? And I just got this feeling. I don't know. It is definitely me getting a dangerous feeling because it was night time, but I felt like this man is gonna charge at me for any reason, right? And I used to be, you can see me right now, right? But I used to be even bigger than this. Right? Imagine me being twice as big as right, you can see what you can see right now because I used to do wrestling in high school and that sort of stuff. So I knew I could take this guy, but for some reason I felt very, very scared because it was a lonely place. There was nobody around, and this guy felt like he's got some very weird shit going on with him. He's gonna charge at me. Maybe he's got a weapon or something. But it felt like more than that. It felt like he had more than criminal intent, right? It felt like he was crazy or something. Like one could almost say that maybe he had like possessed or something, but I'm not gonna say that because I'm a skeptic kind of guy, but it felt like he was like not right in his mind, right? It felt more than criminal intent. It felt like he was mad or something. That is another thing that happened to me.
Interesting. I honestly, I mean, it seems like the area you're in is just pipe full of spirits that are stuck on the roadside from whatever happened to them. I mean, I've heard a lot of this. I
No,
mean, I'm not
I
gonna
don't
lie.
I don't work with that client anymore. I don't work with that client anymore. They sold their
Boy,
business and then they changed lanes. Now they are in oil, I think.
all right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's weird because the largest cases of roadside spirits I ever heard of was in India. I don't know why. It just seems to be the most popular area for them. I mean, and I don't know why. I mean, the United States has a few on like Route 66 and that are famous, and a couple other areas too where teenagers tragically died on the side of the road for various reasons, hitchhiking or whatnot. But and it's interesting. It's definitely a side of the paranormal we haven't touched on this show, and I freaking love you for it. So let me ask, because I like having another science-minded person on the show for this reason. What is your theory on ghosts? I mean, obviously you kind of gotta believe in them since you had some experiences with them, but like, what is your reasoning behind why they exist as a science-minded person?
So the first thing is I do not believe that ghosts exist, but I also, to be really scientific, I mean, what authority do I have to say that ghosts exist or don't exist, right? It is for some researcher to go and figure out how to explain this phenomena, and maybe he's gonna say this is some sort of ghost entity and that kind of shit. Maybe they're gonna say that, oh, maybe people are mad and hallucinating. This is some sort of mass shared hallucination and that kind of stuff. It is for an authority to talk about it, right? In science we do not speak about things we do not know, right? And I'm not an expert in ghosts. I'm not expert in like whatever paranormal stuff is. So I'm not personally, I do not believe in ghosts, but I think that this is probably an area where people should research more. Maybe it's going to lead to more discoveries in clinical psychology. Maybe it's going to lead to more discoveries in the paranormal kind of cases and that sort of stuff. Maybe it's going to lead to more discoveries in criminal activities and that kind of stuff, right? But it is definitely something we should research more about, right? Even if just for the fun of it. And this
Ah,
next thing about this is my personal theory with posts is usually like this, right? For because I consider myself an expert in consumer psychology, right? So I know about this sort of stuff, right? The thing is, maybe usually, and this is my personal opinion, right? Usually, the way things happen is this, and this is my personal opinion. Okay, I have nothing to back over it. This is just my personal opinion. Usually I think what happens is one person experiences some sort of a hallucination, or maybe they remember something that happened and that sort of stuff, or maybe they are just making stuff up, and other people catch on it and then they turn it into a piece of gossip, a meme of sorts, and then it just catches on until it goes right, right? If from research we know that if someone is gonna make up a lie, other people are more likely to catch on that lie and then carry on it as if like that lie is a fact, right? So the majority of these, and this is why research also gets hard for this, right? The majority of these ghost paranormal stuff, these sort of stories are coming from people who are just making stuff up and then passing it along, right? And if something were to happen for real, like if, assuming there's a real ghost or something, what is gonna happen is this: the researchers and the research data set is gonna get all colluded up, and it's gonna get all polluted because the fact is mixed up with all of these lies people are making up, right? So if there's even one true paranormal activity story, it's gonna get messed up with everybody who's making shit up, and it's gonna get that much harder to research the real fact that if is such a thing that might exist. Okay, at least that's my
I
opinion.
I okay. Well, one, I don't completely disagree with you because there are tons of false stories that have come out in the paranormal, whether it be ghosts or other topics. And, it's more people just wanting to fit in and more people just wanting to say they saw something. But the amount, I mean, as a science minded person, you have to know this already, I'm sure. Einstein said energy cannot be destroyed, it has to go somewhere. So the human body, when we're alive, has a certain amount of energy in it. So when we die, that energy has to go somewhere. It doesn't just sit in the ground with us with our body and like sit there for eternity. It has to go somewhere useful. So I mean, and I'll tell you this personally, I live in a possessed house. I don't like the word haunted because it's not haunted, it's possessed. The house has it's not poltergeist activity, there's not cabinets flying open, there's not loud bangs, well, often. But I mean, but I've had paranormal investigators come to the house. I've had mediums and psychics on the show that have confirmed it. There are at least two spirits that live in my house at all times, and apparently some other ones that like to stop by for visits. But as mediums have told me, but I know there are two here for a fact that the original builders of this house, they still live here. They passed on in 2017, 2019, respectively, but they still live here and they're peaceful, so I don't try to get rid of them or anything because it was their house. If they want to stay here and just kind of chill, then whatever. It doesn't bother me one bit. But I know they're here. That's the thing. Like I have slight empathic abilities. I'm not gonna say I'm a full-on empath. I can kind of sense when things are near, but I don't have the full scope of abilities yet. But so they're here. I mean, there are spirits in my house at all times, and actually, one of my most loyal viewers, listeners, Harley says that she's experienced them herself, and that she has some that follow her, the good ones. She says, well, thankfully it's the good ones, but I mean, to say that, I mean, I don't know, to say that ghosts don't exist to me would be almost unbelievable because I can't believe that they wouldn't. I don't think that everybody that has a ghost experience is 100% truthful. No, no. I don't believe that for a second as a science minded person. I can't. Sometimes there are just things we can't explain that are not ghosts. They're just other things, or they're common things in the science realm that we can't just explain. Like a door slamming because it's wind. No, no, it's not a ghost. It's wind. But I mean, there are definitely some false cases out there, 100%. And every realm of the paranormal, there's some false cases. I'm not going to deny that. But in my opinion, ghosts fully exist. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I live with them. I know they freaking exist. They've been around me enough, and I've heard enough. I've had 200 plus guests in this show, and enough of them are in paranormal. I've had enough paranormal investigators that have been in notoriously haunted places and have shown me proof of video proof, picture proof that there are spirits there. I see pictures online all the time where I can see something, and I run these pictures a lot of the time through like an AI checker through basically every check I know that exists, and they're not faked. They're not fake pictures. So I mean, even scientifically minded, I can't say that ghosts don't exist. It's something I can't say, and I mean it's fine. We can agree to disagree on that. I'm perfectly fine with that as well. But I mean, I just wanted to show you, like, I just wanted to put my side of the argument out there as well. But I mean, you've had some experiences, so you kind of breached on that realm a little bit too, and you I think there's a little bit of doubt in your head about that because I think you've seen some things that you can't explain.
Yeah, that is true. I have seen a lot of stuff that I can't explain. I just wish there was some sort of an explanation that was more scientific for it, right? Because, like, let's say I just saw somebody going mad, right? Somebody was sane one at one minute and they just went mad the next minute, right? When you see stuff like that, it begs the question because, like, you're saying that the stuff you're saying that there are good spirits and bad spirits, right? This is the kind of stuff I learned from my aunt who basically raised me, and she used to be super superstitious kind of person, and she had all sort of knocking on the wood type of rituals and going that sort of stuff, right? So I did grew up learning about people who had this sort of superstition mental ability, but ever since I was born, I was never like a believer in this sort of stuff, right? I was always a skeptic, right? And I I'm saying that I do have watched stuff and I do have experienced stuff which is like out of the normal, but I'm not saying it is paranormal, right? I'm not, and not to say that ghost doesn't exist and that sort of stuff, right? I'm not saying that ghosts do exist, or I'm not saying that they do not exist, right? I'm just saying that I don't believe ghosts and these sort of stuff exist, right? And I'm also going to talk about possession in a while, but let's just talk about the scientifics of it, right? The first thing is any sane person to stay alive and maintain their sanity is going to listen to authority, right? Most of the things we do right now are things that we have learned either from peer pressure, we have seen other people do it and then we've copied it, or we have listened to some sort of authority who have copied it, right? And most authorities do not agree that there are ghosts and there's this sort of paranormal activity and that sort of stuff, right? So it is my epistemic responsibility to not believe in ghosts and that sort of stuff for my own sanity and for the sake of science until that thing is proven otherwise, right? So the way that proof works is this, okay? Anything that is out of our consistent perception of the world, I would call that I would call that um, extraordinary. Let's just say. And in science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? So if there are ghosts, a scientist is gonna prove that there are ghosts, and because their claim that ghosts are real is gonna be such an extraordinary claim, it's gonna require extraordinary evidence, right? It's not gonna be just, oh, I have this device and it's like pinging, so there must be a ghost over here. That evidence is not enough, right? If you have an extraordinary claim, it is going to require extraordinary evidence, right? What that evidence might be, the scientist who is researching that sort of stuff is going to be able to tell a lot better than me, okay? But another thing is, I am a data scientist, right? So in data science, we take facts as facts, right? So if somebody is reporting that they have seen a ghost, we are not going to try to interpret it before we are going to give the data its structure, okay? So if somebody is saying they've reported as they have seen a ghost, we are not gonna say they haven't seen a ghost. We are just gonna write down, oh, this person reports seeing a ghost, okay? And that is fact. They are reporting that they saw a ghost, right? It doesn't mean the ghost exists. It doesn't mean the ghost doesn't exist, right? The fact here is this: they say that they are seeing the ghost. That is the fact. The next thing is, now I was pre-med until I dropped out because I didn't like medical stuff and that sort of stuff. And I did a bachelor's in mathematics. So I'm not a physicist or biologist and that sort of stuff, but I have obviously studied that sort of stuff. So let me try to explain the energy part of this, right? And then we are going to talk about possessions, okay?
Ah,
So the energy
I mean,
theory is usually, I'm sorry, you were saying something?
oh no, I mean, go ahead. You're going to energy theory, so I'm kind of dying to hear this.
Right. So here's the thing, right? Energy is a very hard concept to explain, right?
Mhm. Yep.
The most simplest explanation you have read about is energy is the ability to do work, right? Now I have this mug over here, right? When this mug was on the table, it has less energy, but now I have glycogen and I have adenosine triphosphate in my body, right? I'm using the energy, the chemical energy stored in my body to move this glass, right? Now, when I've lifted this glass, the energy that I had in my body, the chemical energy that was stored in my body, now went to this mug. Okay. And the proof of this is if I'm gonna leave this glass, which I'm not gonna do because it's gonna break, but if I'm gonna leave, take my hand off this mug, it's gonna fall, it's gonna move. And that movement is happening because gravity is pulling on it and because it has potential energy, right? The gravity is pulling on it, and which is that stuff is called potential energy. Okay, the gravity is always pulling something above them with the source of that force is something better if you explain to a physicist or that sort of stuff, right? Okay, but the thing is this: if this glass is over here and I'm gonna push it over here, I'm gonna convert the chemical energy stored in my body into kinetic energy into that is in this glass. Okay, and once the work is done, the energy is gone from my body and it's gone from this glass. It's not anywhere else, right? So the question is, where did that energy go? And the answer usually is that energy either turned to sound, that energy either turned to some sort of displacement where energy from that was stored in a potential chemical energy form in my body usually converted into potential energy somewhere else, right? It could also turn into heat, right? So this is kind of my like basic fifth grade explanation of energy. The thing now, the thing here is this: in human body, there is chemical energy which is stored in glycogen, adenosine triphosphate, sugars, that sort of stuff, right? There is also like matter, which is also of, let's just say, I don't know how to say this, but let's just say matter can also be converted into energy. And so there's matter which stores the energy, and then there is the chemical energies that we have in our body, right? So when a person dies, the chemical energy is gone. Okay, the chemical energy is gone. They have no ATP in their body. They have no glycogen in their body because they deliver the piece of glycogen, and their muscles deplete of ATP. What happens is this, their chemical energy is gone and they cannot move anymore, right? If they were to suddenly, after 5 or 6 days, maybe they suddenly came alive, right? Now they won't have any energy in their body. Their energy is all dried up, right? Now won't have any energy in their body. So even if they somehow woke up, they won't be able to move. Okay. The next thing over here is this. Next thing over here is this. Now they have the energy as their like physical body, right? But that body is eventually gonna rot until only their skeleton is left, and eventually in time their skeleton is also gonna like rot and wither away, right? So all of that energy is gone, right? So when people say that they have energy in their body and it's gonna convert it into a ghost, I want you to remember these things, right? I
Yep.
want you to remember this sort of stuff, right? Let's say you have a person, let's say you have a person who died and then they became a ghost and now they are like moving glasses and stuff. To move a glass, they need energy, right? To move a glass, they need energy. So to move a glass, they need energy. And the way that is gonna happen is this. Either they died with that energy because they ate food and then they make that energy and they stored it in their body and then they died and somehow they came alive. Or the other thing is this. Maybe the ghosts can also eat and consume energy and store it in their body and convert it into kinetic energy. Okay. The thing that I'm interested in is this: if there's a ghost, how did they get the ability to like turn into an ethereal form where they do not need a lot of kinetic energy to move around and turn it into a physical form when they can move stuff around like mugs around, right? And if the ghost is gonna live forever and they're gonna keep moving mugs and stuff around, where are they getting their energy that energy from, right? Is their energy source infinite? Somehow the ghost can generate infinite energy and they have a source of infinite energy where they can move these mug around forever if they want because they're gonna live forever. Or maybe they are gonna eat some ghostly food and then they're gonna get the chemical energy to move around this stuff, right? So the thing with energy is this: any energy that human body has, I believe that energy is lost when the person dies, right? It just withers away and rots and goes back to where that person comes up from into the dust. Okay, so if a ghost is gonna live forever, where is that ghost getting that infinite source of energy from? That is a very important question for anybody who is taking that energy argument, right? The next thing is this, and I'm not trying to debunk this sort of stuff, right? I'm just trying to explore some fun possibilities, okay?
Oh, we're,
The
we're
next
just. I
thing
mean,
is this now.
we're theorizing. That's all we're doing. I mean,
I'm sorry,
no one,
what?
no, we're
Right,
theorizing. That's all we're doing. No one's trying. No one would think. No one thinks you're trying to debunk this stuff. Trust me.
right. We are just trying to put our minds together and trying to have fun, okay? Now the next thing is where I'm more interested in, right? Because I grew up with family members, aunts. You have to think about it like this, right? These people were Asian. These people were like really, really old. People who raised me, they usually were like stereotypically superstitious, right? Now, here's the thing that happened, right? The thing that I have the most like challenge to accept is the concept of possession, right? Because it can simply be explained as like, oh, this person is mad. He has lost his mind, and that's why this person is mad. Okay, that's why they are doing all sort of weird stuff, right? Now, I've lived in Asia for a lot of years. I've lived with old superstitious people for a lot of my life. I've lived with, I've volunteered in a lot of places, and I've seen a lot of like cases where people were like crazy. And if you have ever been to Asia, you know, like if somebody's gonna be crazy or they are acting crazy, people are gonna say this guy is possessed or something. They're not gonna say let's take him to a psychiatrist, right? They are gonna say this guy is possessed or something because it's just fun to say, right? They know that maybe they could have taken him to a psychiatrist or something, but they just try to have fun, say, oh, this guy is possessed or something, right? But how, what kind of a lost mind would somebody would have to have to do some really really crazy stuff, right? Because I've read some very crazy cases, and I was said this is mental disease. I mean, this person had really would have to be crazy, like hurt his family members, hurt his own property, hurt his hurt children and stuff, and that kind of stuff, right? So I've seen people go crazy to a point where I say the excuse of mental disease shouldn't be enough. Shouldn't be enough because it gives these guys a way to like sign off it and say, "Oh, I'm crazy and that's why I'm doing this," right? And I can't accept the fact that somebody could go so crazy that they do that sort of a stuff, right? In that case, I would say, what is the nature of possession, right? Is possession just mental disease? Is possession like some sort of a next level of mental disease? Is possession like some unexplained mystery of the brain? I would really like to know why people do some crazy stuff that they do where they shouldn't be doing this, right? And especially because if they was like completely sane, they grew up in a sane household, they had proper education, and then the one day they just went crazy, right? I would like to know makes people what is the thumb screw that makes people do this sort of crazy stuff, right? And
Exactly.
that is why possession is a very interesting concept to me.
I get. All right. Well. All right. Well. Where to start? Well. I mean, as far as the energy theory goes, I mean, how do these spirits have the supposed abilities to move objects or shut doors or any of that? I mean, there's two basic theories for that that I know of that kind of can explain it. And typically, the first theory is typically it's not until spirits are older. They've been around for a long time. Those are the ones who can be poltergeists and completely shut cabinets, move objects around, make objects disappear and reappear, shut doors. The first theory is they have to be around for a while as spirits to do that because it's a learned ability for spirits. It's not like you die one day, the next day you're in someone's house pushing their coffee cup an inch away from them every time they go to drink it. Like it's not the way it works. Like normally spirits have to evolve basically like humans do to learn how to do things. And I mean, that's the first theory. The second theory, which I kind of go by the first theory myself personally, but the second theory I've heard is that once you pass on, you are connected to another dimension, another realm, whatever you want to call it. You want to call it heaven, hell, whatever you want to call it. You're connected somewhere, and that place has infinite energy you could borrow from. And I mean, it kind of ties into the first one because I think you got to learn to use that energy before you. Because I don't think you realize you have that ability when you first turn spirit. I think you have to kind of learn it. But I mean, every every form on Earth has to learn stuff eventually. So I feel like spirits have to learn they have these abilities to begin with. So that's why you're not gonna see. I mean, even children who pass away at a premature age, they as mischievous as they may be as ghosts because they don't realize they're dead, they don't have the ability to do these types of things. Like they just don't. Because I think it takes time. I think that's the biggest thing here is it takes time to learn to do these things even as a spirit because you don't just turn to a spirit and then have all knowing ability. That's not the way it works. I mean, yes, you may be able to answer questions right away as a spirit because you can connect to other realms, other dimensions, but you don't have the ability to. You don't know what you're capable of until you truly try. Same as humans. So that's my personal belief on that one. And as far as, I mean, I don't know. It's just as far as why people do what they do, why people do certain things they do. I mean, even as spirits, that's a question for a mental health professional. I am not a mental health professional by any freaking means, so I'm not gonna sit here and try to explain why people do what they do. I mean, there are narcissists in this world for some reason. There are selfish people in this world for some reason. There are mentally unstable people in this world for some reasons. And all three of those could be the same person. I mean, just saying, all three of those could be the same exact person. I know someone like that. But the bottom line is, you can't explain why people do what they do. That nobody can. Nobody ever will. We can make theories, we can take guesses, but we can never really truly explain why people do what they do. That's maybe the biggest paranormal mystery out there in the world is why people do what they do. I mean, why did Charlie Manson want to gather a cult up and go race helter skelter? Why did Jim Jones want to bring thousands upon thousands of people to an island and then kill them all? Like, we can't explain why people do what they do. I mean, we can't explain why the Karen at the mall wants to complain because one worker made her happy or unhappy. Like, we can't explain that. We really can't explain that. Even simple things like that. Is she just in a bad mood that day? Is she just a Karen by nature, a raging bitch? Like, who knows? Like, you can't explain why people's minds work the way they do. It's a mystery. We don't understand a good 88% of our brains probably, and we're not going to for a long time. So, I mean, I think that extraterrestrials have the answers. I think that's the one thing that has answers, and it's kind of a segue because I kind of want to get into I kind of want to hear what you think about this. I kind of do. But, because I mean, I think the only people that can really explain why humans do what they do is extraterrestrials because they help us evolve and help create us. And one or the other. I don't know which, but they did one or the other, and I kind of want to know why they did it and what we're capable of because of that. But which kind of leads me to my point. As a intelligent, science-minded man, why what do you think of extraterrestrials? Do you think they exist, or do you think that's more people making false stories?
Okay, so let's just do this in order, right? First, you told me about two theories. The first thing is as a ghost grows older, they learn stuff, right? And the second thing is they have some sort of an energy source from another dimension, that kind of stuff, which I think could be when you scientists should explore and that kind of stuff. But here's the thing: once you are a baby and when you are growing up, you cannot move stuff until you learn how to move stuff, right? But the second thing is you still have to eat, consume, convert that food into energy until you are and eventually able to use that energy to move stuff, right? So I think both of your theories are a piece of puzzle that you can like possibly connect and like use for further explaining your own benefit. Okay, so the both of these theories can be true at the same time. The second thing is The second thing is this. You were talking about possession and why people are narcissists and selfish and that sort of stuff, right? And I am also interested in the fact that where is the line, right? Where do we say that narcissism and selfishness and that sort of stuff isn't enough? It's not enough of an explanation. There should be some sort of a line where people should start behaving like a sane and civilized person instead of like blaming it on anger, blaming it on their selfishness, blaming it on going crazy for a while, blaming it on possessions and that sort of stuff. Okay. Now let's talk about extraterrestrial, right? We are talking about aliens over here. Now, here's the thing about aliens, right? Personally, I do believe that aliens exist out of the sheer probability of them existing, but because we haven't met any aliens over here, the thing is this, right? And this is just my opinion, right? I'm happy with believing one of these two things. Either aliens do exist and we are eventually going to meet them once we are a spacefaring civilization and that sort of stuff. And I think when we are going to tell them about ghosts, they are also going to be confused, right? They are also going to say, I don't know, we have never met any ghosts and that sort of stuff, right? Because if the majority of humans on this planet haven't met any ghosts, how do you know that if an alien dies, they also turn into a ghost? And there are other planets with ghosts on them, right? And in that way, if we are gonna go to if we are creating some sort of ghost detecting machine and we are gonna go on another planet, let's say we go to Mars and then we detect some sort of signals on a device that says, "Oh, there are ghosts on Mars." Are we gonna say that ghosts on Mars is like a proof of life on Mars, right? Because if there are ghosts on Mars, there must be people on Mars that have died there, right? And if they have died there, why didn't the ghost like climb up in his spaceship and went back to his planet and then like stayed on Mars and say, I died there, I'm stuck on this planet because gravity is holding the ghost back or for some reason. The next thing is if we are living in a simulation, that would explain why we should be seeing aliens everywhere, but we are not seeing aliens everywhere, right? Because in this simulation, we are the only civilization we are interacting with each other, right? So I'm happy with the simulation theory. I'm also happy with me eventually meeting aliens and like having dinner with them and that sort of stuff. But it's also something that is not out of the realm of scientific possibility, and we should definitely like have some fun with it.
Okay, well, see, right there, I knew as a science-minded man like myself that you would believe in extraterrestrials to some degree. I knew you would because nobody that calls himself science-minded cannot believe in them because A, there's proof, and B, it wouldn't make logical scientific sense if we were the only sentient, intelligent beings in this universe. It would not make sense. So I knew you would, and I had a feeling you'd agree with me on that. And I'm happy I was right. But I mean, in Ghost of Mars, good movie. But um, I will say that I don't know. Ali- it's funny because you say alien ghost, and I'm just like, well, I've, I even talked to someone last night who dove. She supposedly, according to her, can go into a room where she can see multiple dimensions of her own life, and she can see herself in other timelines, which I fully back because I believe that's possible. Why not? The multiverse exists. We all know it does. Any science-minded person will tell you that it has to exist. But and she's according to her and other people I've talked to, in some of these lives, in their past lives or alternate lives, however you want to phrase it, they did not live on Earth in these lives. They were living on another planet completely where they were not humans. So to me, that's proof and a half that extraterrestrials have to exist. Because how could they not exist when these people are seeing past lives? And it's too many people for me to say like, oh, they made it up. No, because even if one of the dozen I've talked to is telling the truth, that's proof. That's proof right there. And I don't think that all the dozen or however many there have been, because I've talked to a lot of people, are lying to me. I see it in their eyes. I see it in the way they tell the story and the way they tell what they believe. And I don't think they're lying. I just can't. Like, none of my alarms are going off about, like, are they lying? Like, none of them are going off. And it seems like they 100% believe what they're saying. So, I mean, I'm the same. I mean, I 100% believe extraterrestrials exist. I think they've been among us for a long freaking time, longer than we'll ever know. And I think they've been kind of leading the way for us in the last century at least. If not in ancient times, plenty too. But I think in the last century they've been leading the way. All these new developments we have, I think, are because of technology they gave us or that we took from them. So that's my personal opinion. I mean, if you, I don't know, it just seems. I mean, I've also talked to people who've worked in laboratories that the government has that they've had to identify metals that don't belong on Earth, metals never found on Earth, and in amounts that it can't just be, oh, this is a meteor that fell to Earth. Like, just, it's strange. I've talked to people who've worked on, who have taken apart supposedly UFOs and looked at the metal. And yes, there are elements in there that are found on Earth, 100%. 100% there are. But there are also elements underneath those elements that can't be explained. They're not elements we know exist on Earth. And I mean, I took chemistry, so I know what most elements are, and the characteristics of of these certain elements do not line up with anything we know exists. So, I mean, the proof is out there. People have, I mean, as Fox Mulder would say, even the truth is out there. We just have to look for it. A lot of people want to stay blind, though. That's personally their problem, but a lot of people want to stay blind to the truth.
Right. So what I usually think about aliens is this, right? The first thing I believe is the majority of chances say that we haven't like met or encountered aliens right now, but there is a good chance that aliens might be hiding between us, right? We just haven't found them yet, okay? Because there are, let's think about it like this, there are species that originated on this planet that we haven't found or accounted for or documented yet, right? There are species in the Amazonian forest, there are species that live underwater and we haven't accounted them, we haven't documented them, and there are bird watchers, marine biologists, and all sort of scientists trying to discover more and more uh, species or subspecies of beetles, fish, I don't know, algae, and that sort of stuff, right? So it is very possible that aliens might be living among us, but we haven't seen them, right? The second thing is, I do not believe that aliens are humanoid, right? Because most species on our own planet aren't humanoid. Most species are on our planet are not like, they don't have like a face and two hands and 2 feet and they walk upright. Most species are like, they are like cats, dogs, fish. There are
Insects.
insects, right? There are germs, there are plants. So we do not know. The possibility is that there could very well be that we are eventually going to find a planet which has a lot of alien lives and all of it is like plant life or that sort of stuff, right? Because the most alien thing we know about on this planet, we can say in a manner of speaking, is plant life, right? Plant life is life that is completely different from us, right? It doesn't have blood, it doesn't have limbs that allows it to move from one place to another. And so plant life is the most alien thing that is, we can qualify as living, that we know, right? It doesn't have a beating heart and that sort of stuff, right? So we can maybe find a planet which has all plant life. We can maybe find a planet which has a lot of insects or some life that is so small and micro size that we cannot even see it from the outside. And maybe some of that alien microscopic life is living among us and we are yet to find about them. The next thing is, maybe the aliens aren't micro, maybe they aren't dumb, maybe they are so advanced that they are able to hide themselves. And like, if I was an alien and I knew that there were other alien around, I would like try to hide myself, create some sort of a shield, or maybe go as far as I can go so other people cannot find, right? Because chances are, because this is something I believe, right? I believe that if we are gonna find aliens, they are gonna be a hostile civilization, right? So if we are gonna find aliens, we should like create weapons and stuff to protect ourselves before we go out there and find aliens.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, oh, to some degree, because I mean, the most known extraterrestrial species that the paranormal field likes to talk about are greys, reptilians, and Norses, and I guess the Palladians will get thrown in there too because they're mentioned a lot. All four of these are, though, humanoid-ish species that walk upright on two legs, and they all have some kind of intelligence close, well, better than humanity because we're still monkeys in the trees in a way compared to extraterrestrials. So we, I mean, a lot of the alien species we know of are are humanoid in nature. But I mean, are they humans? No, they're. I mean, reptilians are part reptile, supposedly. Greys are something we can't even explain. They walk like humanoids, but they also supposedly could change form. So who the hell knows what they really look like? I mean, that may be for our benefit that they look like that to us, because that may be for our benefit because it's easier for us to comprehend than what they really look like. Palladians kind of look like the Camino aliens from Star Wars, from what I've been told. So they are humanoid, but they're different looking. And Norse, I mean Norse aliens are the most they're the hardest to explain because they supposedly look like people from Iceland, Sweden, that area. Like that's what they look like supposedly. I mean, whether it's a ability to change form, who knows? I mean, it could be if because they could have come down to Earth millennia ago when Norse gods were a thing and were really worshipped, and they could have said, okay, they worship these that look like them. Let's look like them just to make life easier on them, so they don't freak out when they see us. I mean, who knows? I'm not. I've yet to meet any of these creatures, so I can't say for sure. But this is just my theory on it. So I mean, I think there are humanoid ones out there. I also believe there are 100% not humanoid looking ones out there. I mean, look at the chupacabra legends out of Puerto Rico and the South. Like they're extraterrestrial in nature supposedly, but they do not look like humans. They look like dogs. They look like coyotes. They look like basically what we know as canines, but deformed. So who knows? I mean, and that's a whole nother topic that yeah, nah, we're not getting into, but because that's actually one of my most like less. That's one of the cryptids I believe in the least. But there's proof of them, so who knows? But I want to give you this last few minutes to talk about your podcast, talk about what you guys do on there, and then just basically promote where people can find you, like anywhere they can find you, promote it.
Great, right. So thank you so much, Jeremy, for inviting me, and I really had a lot of fun with this podcast. So what I basically do is I do consulting, do business growth consulting and marketing for small to medium sized businesses. So if you have a business and you are looking to grow that business, then definitely contact me on my LinkedIn. Or you can also check out my podcast, which is available on Spotify, it's available on YouTube, it's available all over the place, and it's called the Startup Specialist, where I usually talk about, where I usually invite experts and I ask them about their experiences and things that they can do for your business, and they teach you how to do that for your own business, right? So if you have a business or if you are an entrepreneur, definitely check out my podcast, The Startup Specialist. And if you are looking for a growth partner that can help you grow your business, definitely check out me on my LinkedIn. You can also like contact me from my. You can also like contact me if you want to be a guest on the podcast. If you're an experienced expert, maybe you have a master's, PhD, or that sort of an advanced degree. Maybe you have decades of business experience. I would love to hear from you and talk about your own experiences with your business, right? We have all sorts of professionals, from leadership experts running 200, $300 million companies. We have VCs coming on our show and telling us how a founder or business person should like structure their company and seek out funding. We have experts who are personal finance and business finance experts, and they tell us how to like manage your finances as a business owner and founder. So if you're a business owner and founder, definitely check out my podcast. And if you need a growth partner, if you need my consulting or my marketing help, definitely check out my LinkedIn profile. What we basically do is we have a very specific and very data-backed marketing thesis that is different from any other marketing agency on the planet, right? So we can do for your business what nobody else can do for your business, right? And we can like tie specific initial investments to specific return on investments and create some sort of investment tranches. So you have like a reduced exposure to risk, so we are able to work with your personal risk tolerance to grow your business at your pace using our unique marketing thesis. Okay. So if you are a business owner, definitely check me out on LinkedIn and my Startup Specialist podcast.
Well, there you go, folks. And I'm definitely going to add you on LinkedIn tomorrow because I do use LinkedIn for my podcast and for my business. Well, not my business, but for the business I work for. But you can, of course, all my listeners, you should know where to find me by now. If you don't, then my marketing has failed and I feel like a failure. But if you don't know, check out the outro because I don't like people to remember things. So check out the outro. And you can find everywhere you can find me there. For all the watchers, it's been scrolling on the bottom of the screen the whole time. If you can't read, then I feel bad for you. But I want to thank Ray for coming on because it's been a fun hour. I love debating with skeptics. It's always a fun time, and it gets us all like a little bit different aspect of what we believe to try to think about. So it's a great mental exercise if anything else. But come back next week. I'll have more episodes. I'll have more interviews coming out on Monday and the whole rest of the week, as you know. Until then, thank you, Ray, for coming on, and thank you all for watching. All 15, 14 of you, I appreciate it. And thank you, listeners, for listening. I will be back next week. Have a good night.